What's happening, everybody? Got a new camera rig set up, and this will be my first foray into being on camera on YouTube, so we'll see how this goes. This also means that I'm probably going to get rid of the Stickman avatar. I know you guys love that guy, but maybe he'll be back for future endeavors. But haven't put out a video in a while, so I figured I would just screech at a news article that I found particularly interesting. And we'll dig into it right now. It's titled, it's from Bloomberg. It's titled, Wall Street Rule for the hashtag #MeToo era. Avoid women at all costs. Now, I anticipated some kind of interesting blowback from the Me Too movement when it came to men in positions of authority where they might have to interact with women. And then that was kind of re-solidified when Mike Pence came out and basically said he won't do anything with a woman unless it's with his wife. It doesn't matter if it's professional or anything like that, unless it's in kind of a group setting, right? He doesn't do anything one-on-one with women at all. And, you know, a lot of people lambasted him for it. And but it really is, it's kind of like the abstinent sex educators say, is that the only 100% surefire way to not have STDs or to not get pregnant is to not have sex. And the number one way, the best way, the 100% surefire means to not get hashtag MeToo'd is to not spend time alone with women. It's just that simple. It really is. And it really is a perfect mechanism by which one could avoid being Me Too'd. And, you know, I saw a lot of activists and things talking about, well, yeah, it must be really hard just not to assault women when you're alone with them. Or maybe you could not be a scumbag and not rape women and you wouldn't have anything to worry about. Well, you know, the one thing that I have to disagree with them about is that oftentimes people lie about things, especially when you're dealing with powerful individuals. It's very easy to be able to kind of speculate that some people might, under certain circumstances, lie to get things out of powerful people, as much as powerful people might try to coerce individuals into doing things for some kind of gain. All right, so let's go through this article. This should be interesting. It says, no more dinners with female colleagues. Don't sit next to them on flights. Book hotel rooms on different floors. Avoid one-on-one meetings. It seems like a pretty surefire way to not get Me Too'd. It says, in fact, as a wealth advisor put it, just hiring a woman these days is, quote, an unknown risk. What if she took something he said the wrong way? We're literally worrying about this now. We're so worried. These men are so worried that something could be taken the wrong way. Something that he says might be taken the wrong way, and his career might be ruined for it. It says, across Wall Street, men are adopting controversial strategies for the hashtag MeToo era, and in the process, making life even harder for women. Call it the Pence effect, after U.S. Vice President Mike Pence, who has said he avoids dining alone with any woman other than his wife. In finance, the overarching impact can be, in essence, gender segregation. And this is something that I, wondered might happen with the Me Too thing, in that certain men who want to make sure that they are not being considered to have done something wrong might very well start to just remove themselves from this space altogether. Henry Cavill did it, and there was a large blowback about that. And again, Mike Pence did it. Interviews with more than 30 senior executives suggest many are spooked by hashtag MeToo and struggling to cope. Quote, it's creating a sense of walking on eggshells, said David Banson, former managing director at Morgan Stanley, who's now an independent advisor overseeing more than $1.5 billion. Okay, this is hardly a single industry phenomenon, as men across the country check their behavior at work to protect themselves in the face of what they consider unreasonable political correctness, or to simply do the right thing. And you could see that, right? You could see that certain men might be like, this is ridiculous, but I have to do it to protect myself. And other men are genuinely trying to do the right thing by these women. To try to act in such a way as they don't be offensive, or they don't say the wrong thing, or they don't do something that might be considered untoward. And so you could see that I hate to dichotomize it in this way, but it could very well be that you have men who are trying to protect themselves from would-be assailants, like people with nefarious plans, or men genuinely trying to do right by women. The upshot is forceful on Wall Street, where women are scarce in the upper ranks. The industry has also long nurtured a culture that keeps harassment complaints out of the courts and public eye, and has so far avoided a mega scandal like the one that engulfed Harvey Weinstein. And I could see that being true. Real loss. Now, more than a year into the #MeToo movement, with its devastating revelations of harassment and abuse in Hollywood, Silicon Valley, and beyond, Wall Street risks becoming more of a boys' club rather than less of one. Again, because these men are going to coalesce together, particularly at the top. More powerful men are going to want to have fewer intimate one-on-one interactions with women. And this would probably likely involve anything from direct reporting to, mentorships or things like that. Quote, women are grasping for ideas on how to deal with it because it is affecting our careers, said Karen Alinsky, president of the Financial Women's Association and a senior vice president at Wells Fargo & Co. It's a real loss. And that's what it is, man, is like, how are women supposed to move up if they can't interact with men in higher reaches of power, at the higher reaches of the echelons in their workplace, because these men do not want to deal with that. They're scared. It says there's a danger too for companies that fail to squash the isolating backlash and don't take steps to have top managers be open about the issue and make it safe for everyone to discuss it, said Stephen Zweig, an employment attorney with Ford Harrison. Exactly. Concerns should be able to be brought up, and maybe policies or things can be implemented in order to mitigate the effects of these things. Quote, if men avoid working or traveling with women alone, or stop mentoring women for fear of being accused of sexual harassment, those men are going to back out of a sexual harassment complaint and right into a sex discrimination complaint. Yeah, so they're fighting a double-edged sword, because these men want to distance themselves from women that could potentially have bad motives or could potentially misconstrue something. But then on the flip side, these women can come out and say, well, now they're discriminating against women. So what are these men supposed to do? I mean, I know some people out there, and I know some people personally who would say, well, maybe they just shouldn't be harassers, or maybe they just shouldn't rape people. And it's like, I get that. But a lot of these men were never going to harass anyone, or were never going to rape anyone, or hurt anyone at all. However, they're trying to take measures to prevent even the idea that it might have occurred. And I could understand that. I could understand wanting to avoid the situation altogether. And I got some ideas. We'll get into that in a minute. Channeling Pence. While the new personal codes for dealing with #MeToo have only just begun to ripple, the shift is already palpable, according to the people interviewed who declined to be named. They work for hedge funds, law firms, banks, private equity firms, investment management firms, rich people, right? Wall Street. For obvious reasons, few will talk openly about the issue. Privately, though, many of the men interviewed acknowledge they're channeling Pence, saying how uneasy they are about being alone with female colleagues, particularly youthful or attractive ones, fearful of the rumor mill, or of, as one put it, the potential liability. And that's it, man. And that is a long-standing thing that exists where, if you're a man and a woman and you work together for a period of time, it's almost inevitable that at least one person will start to believe that you have some kind of romantic, intimate thing going on, even if none exists. And it's just part of the sexual double standard, and it's part of how people perceive male-female dynamics when they are together in intimate, close settings frequently. A manager in infrastructure investing said he won't meet with female employees in rooms without windows anymore. He also keeps his distance in elevators. A late 40-something in private equity said he has a new rule, established on the advice of his wife, an attorney: no business dinner with a woman 35 or younger. So basically, you don't want to give the impression that you are attracted to this person at all. The changes can be subtle but insidious, with a woman, say, excluded from casual after-work drinks, leaving male colleagues to bond, or having what should be a private meeting with a boss with the door left wide open. And this goes back to the notion of most business deals take place on golf courses, and women typically are not invited to the golf game because women just typically aren't as interested in golf as men are. Not that hard. On Wall Street as elsewhere, reactions to the Me Too can smack of paranoia, particularly given the industry's history of protecting its biggest revenue generators. Quote, some men have voiced concerns to me that a false accusation is what they fear, said Zwig, the lawyer. These men fear what they cannot control. There are as many or more men who are responding in quite different ways. One, an investment advisor who manages about 100 employees, said he briefly reconsidered having one-on-one meetings with junior women. He thought about leaving his office door open or inviting a third person into the room. Finally, he landed on the solution. Just try not to be an asshole. I mean, that seems easy enough, but if somebody misconstrues something that you say as being an asshole, then what are you supposed to do? People tell me I'm an asshole quite frequently. I think I'm a pretty nice guy. And a lot of times somebody would be like, man, that was kind of a dick thing to say. And I'd be like, ah, man, I didn't mean it like that. Sorry. Or it was a joke or something, you know? That's pretty much the bottom line, said Rod Biscardi, Chief Executive Officer of Context Capital Partners. It's really not that hard. Is it not, though? Is it not? For some people, it seems as though it is. And if you think about the Me Too movement over the past year, there's been several cases that we can analyze. The first is Harvey Weinstein. We have that cold. We have audio evidence. We have plenty of witness testimony. We have all sorts of things to show that Harvey Weinstein is a scumbag. And then you could move forward a little bit. You could look at somebody like Louis C.K. Now, here's a situation where Louis C.K. did something sexual with a woman, and he thought he had consent. Evidently, that consent was not there as he thought it was, and so he came out, admitted to wrongdoing, apologized, and he's still being lambasted for trying to work. And my question to that is how long is he supposed to wait before he's allowed to work again? Or is he just never allowed to work again? It's one of those things where I feel like the man took his licks and he's learned his lesson, and it's very likely that he will make damn sure before he does any shit like that again that he's going to have consent. Now, the third case that really stands out to me is the one of Aziz Ansari. As we were coming through all this Me Too stuff, we found Aziz in a situation where he went on a date with a woman. He took her back to the place, and he was trying to seduce her, but evidently he was not doing a very good job, and he just failed, and it was a bad date. From testimony and things like that, to me, it doesn't seem like he forced himself on anyone. It doesn't seem like he kept pushing and pushing and pushing it in a forceful manner. It doesn't seem like he was trying to coerce, per se. It doesn't seem like he was trying to use his position to bully this woman. It really just seemed to me like he was just bad at seducing this particular woman. So, in my opinion, you really have to, at this point, figure out where we can draw the line between coercion and seduction, because seduction is an important part of courtship. I mean, it seems like some of the Me Too activists on the far extreme would like to do away with courtship altogether, or give women more control of the sexual landscape than they already have. Because overall, the way the sexual landscape works is that, in the simplest terms I can manage, and I hate doing this, but it's men who ask and women who say yes or no. The reason we find it to be a violation of social norms when that does not occur is because that is how things are. There's not much you can do about that. And so it's very easy to get upset when you think a man didn't ask or a woman didn't say yes. And that is, I hate to be biologically deterministic about it, but that's just how it is. And that's how it has been. And that's how it is in most mammalian species. And it boils down to reproductive investment for the most part. However, in this situation, you have to add, you could say, just don't be an asshole. You could say, well, it must be hard not raping somebody. And it's like, well, it's not hard to not rape somebody. Most men, the majority of men, the vast majority of men, don't rape. They don't sexually harass. They don't do these things. Most of these assholes are probably just trying to go to work without incident and keep their job without being in headlines. Especially the rich fucks. What did they say this guy made up here? It was like $1.5 million or something. Yeah, here it is. $1.5 billion this guy looks at day to day. He's an advisor and he oversees $1.5 billion. God damn it, that's a lot of money. And yeah, all that can be just completely destroyed and just crippled by the word of one woman. One woman coming out and saying this man did something untoward to her. And his entire $1.5 billion industry disintegrates. Now, those are pretty high stakes. So I would say high stakes like that require some pretty significant measures. And I've thought about this in myself, right? I hate human people, so I don't socialize very often. But I've found myself in a situation where I've considered becoming maybe a college professor. Or something along those lines. Something where I might advise someone. And in my field, it's primarily women, so I could see myself, if I were to become a PhD professor, something like that, I have advisees or I have graduate students or something like that, there's a high likelihood that the majority of the people that I interact with are female in the field of psychology. So, what do? Do I keep recordings on in my office at all times so I can have closed-door conversations with people? Do I wear a body cam? Like, things like that? Like, what do I do? Because in these cases, there's very rarely physical evidence that exists that can exonerate or prove one way or the other. But with the new notion of believe women when they make a claim, it makes it difficult. So, I could see having an insurance policy, so to speak, for this type of occurrence, if it were to occur. Because the bottom line is, and I hate to say it, women lie. Men lie too, but women also lie. So, sometimes that can be rough. And sometimes, if there were a situation where there were a standard, and a woman makes an accusation, and there's video evidence to back up that accusation, maybe it would be a little easier to lock down assholes who really are assholes. And that's just my thoughts on the notion. The Me Too thing is very, very fascinating to me. And it's very interesting to see how it is having a snowball effect throughout all these types of industries. So, I don't know. Let me know what you think. Leave me a comment. We'll keep arguing about it. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Let me know. And most of all, I love you guys. Be good to each other.